You remember back during issue 47 where I said that the series ran into a lot of behind-the-scenes issues? Yeah, it turns out a lot of that could be applied directly to the final issue, as that's where a lot of the biggest changes were made. We'll cover some of the more interesting facts later on, but one of the biggest facts about it is, the original release is not even a complete story. See, Ken Penders, in his infinite wisdom, wrote the 50th issue with the idea behind it that it would be released as a 48-page special. A proper special too, no backup stories or anything, just a straight-up end to what was supposed to be the most epic story in the series' history. I've already demonstrated that the build-up to it was pretty disappointing on that front. However, the editors at Archie told him no, meaning that about half of the story needed to be ripped out, which made a messy conclusion to a disappointing story even messier. So, just to make sure you're all getting the proper complete experience and to demonstrate that a polished turd still stinks, we're not looking at the original release of the book. No, we're looking at the director's cut, released as the 6th issue of the Sonic Super Special line. You know, because we needed all that extra detail. I will say, in defense of the original, it had a much better cover. I'm not a fan of the border around it, as I usually find it very redundant, but the sight of Sonic and Robotnik facing each other down like this is excellent, and really does give you a feel that yes, this is a showdown meant to evoke the end of an era for the comic. It's a great little scene. The director's cut, by contrast, is not only way too busy, but it also looks just really ugly. Not only do most of the characters look weird, but the colors look very, very washed out. And then there's this. Look at this image and despair, my fellow humans. Well, at least in the director's cut, we skip over the text recap page. Ironically, in this sort of release, a recap page would actually be pretty nice, but whatever. And we start off in a flashback to Robotnik in the past, running away from a pair of other Overlanders shooting at him. He's apparently a fugitive, but he manages to elude them by tripping into the mud, as they don't seem to have any night vision or any headlights or anything that might be useful in tracking down a known fugitive. He's found by Uncle Chuck and Sonic's father, Jules. Despite Chuck's protests, Jules states that they aren't like the Overlanders, they understand mercy and concern. And besides, having one on their side might be useful in helping to end the war. And it does, as he not only tells all of the weaknesses that he knows, but is made warlord, and leads the troops against his own kind, with a few cameos in the crowd from Bean the Duck and the obscure Sega Saturn platform hero, Astel. It turns out this was a dream Robotnik was having while he was sleeping in some sort of suspended animation. He's in quite a good mood when he wakes up, and his mood only gets better when the SWAT bots inform him that they've captured an Overlander and have prepared him as a beta test subject for Robotnik's newest weapon, though there's only enough energy saved for a single test. The Overlander, given no name here, is surprised to see Robotnik is none other than Julian, who everyone had thought was long dead. Robotnik is more than happy to turn a laser cannon on him, ignoring his pleas. The weapon Robotnik uses seems to completely erase the Overlander from existence, and Robotnik considers this a rousing success, stating that once they have the supplies he needs from Down Under, Mobius will be his. Though Snively, watching over a plot convenience monitor, seems to think differently. Cut back over to the tense standoff on Angel Island, where Jeffrey once again accuses Sonic of murdering Sally, causing Knuckles to once again leap at the chance to pound him into paste, with several more of Jeffrey's men showing up to assist. Sonic manages to spin away, but is grabbed by Espio, camouflaged with a tree. Knuckles and Jeffrey turn on each other over who has authority here, until Dulcie mercifully shows up and once again pulls out that whole "dragons can't tell lies and sense truth" BS from the last issue, and everyone just accepts it as fact, Knuckles especially calling Jeffrey out when he has the gall to question a dragon's word. Finally free of his need of violent vengeance, Jeffrey surmises that someone's trying to divide and conquer them. Knuckles even lends his assistance to Sonic, out of respect for Sally. So things are finally looking up and getting a little less stupid. We cut over to Knothole, where the denizens are being marched en masse to the roboticizer. And with no explanation about how they managed to sneak away or escape, Tails and Rotor are sneaking around to a hidden tunnel where the Sea Fox and Bathysphere are kept. But as soon as they get in there, oh no, Drago and a bunch of combots were waiting for them. No idea how he knew about the vehicles or why he was waiting there, but there he is. In the space of 3 panels, our heroes managed to get recaptured. Great. Back in Down Under, Bunny and Antoine are apparently fiddling with the alarm collars around their neck, which triggers an explosion in their cell, leading the combots to assume that they were all killed, despite the fact that an explosion like that probably would leave something behind, but whatever. Bunny, Antoine, Wally, and Barbie head off to free the other Down Under freedom fighters, off-screen of course, and then immediately jump Crocbot and his convoy. While the DFF take on their nemesis, Antoine and Bunny leap aboard the ore shipment, using it to get back to Knothole. Crocbot manages to let Robotnik know about the shipment making it off to him, despite the uprising he's trying to put down, and after that vital scene, we cut back over to Rotor and Tails, being led off by some SWAT bots and Drago. But before they can get too far, surprise, Sonic and Knuckles drop in from above and make the save. Oh, and Jeffrey's there too, I guess. They take out the SWAT bots and free the other prisoners held inside one of those giant capsules from the games before Sonic turns his attention on Drago. The wolf immediately turns tail and tries to run, which is always smart when the thing chasing you is capable of breaking the sound barrier. And we once again cut back over to Bunny and Antoine, breaking deep into the airbus carrying the supplies, coming across a conveniently placed video log from Robotnik, outlining his plan to use whatever's on the bus to take out all resistance. Bunny and Antoine start to come up with an idea to try and sabotage the weapon, and we cut back to Drago, who is somehow able to be fast enough to get out of Sonic's line of sight, trying to find a place to hide, when Hershey appears and lures him over, and then beats the ever-loving piss out of him. It's actually a hell of a lot more violent and intense compared to most of the other fights we've seen in this series up to this point, though it's less of a fight and more of a no-holds-barred beatdown. And for all the crap I give this arc, and for how poorly Hershey's subplot was handled in the comic, this is without a doubt one of the most cathartic scenes in all 4 issues. Sonic happens by after she's sufficiently beat him into a big pile of paste and tearfully confesses to murdering Sally, though she didn't know she was doing it at the time. Sonic, being the good guy that he is, and knowing that there are bigger fish to fry, forgives her, telling her that they were all duped before heading down the road to find Robotnik. Robotnik wakes up from his hypersleep pod thing again to be told that the Down Under shipment has arrived, but that Sonic has liberated the whole of Knothole, though he seems rather happy about this, preparing to fight Sonic himself if need be. Bunny and Antoine are up in the rafters above, watching the supplies being unloaded, waiting for the moment to strike as Sonic is spotted outside of the ship they're planning to launch. Sonic dodges around the defenses, even coming face to face with Snively, who makes a rather half-hearted attempt at stopping him from getting inside. And then Sonic runs into Bunny and Antoine, who reveal that they have a bomb on their person that they plan on using to sabotage the weapon. Despite their protests, Sonic orders them to do so while he's using himself as a distraction. They manage to find their way up into the weapon chamber, just as it's activated and fires something up to a satellite in space. Sonic finds Robotnik and starts to take on a massive army of SWAT bots, just as Robotnik activates Stage 2. The Ultimate Annihilator launches its beam back down to Earth, turning Knothole into a crater while Sonic watches. And as Robotnik gloats about his victory, Sonic goes absolutely crazy, not only destroying every robot that gets near him, but tearing apart most of the machinery in the room as well. While they can't allow him to say it for censoring purposes, it's pretty evident that he plans on straight up killing Robotnik at this point. Antoine and Bunny plant the bomb and then beat a hasty retreat, and when it goes off, an alarm sounds, stating that the system crash is causing an energy emission that will cause a shockwave basically having the same effect as the beam had on Knothole, destroying everything in its path, basically all throughout the base. But Robotnik and Sonic don't really care about that right now. They face each other down as we once again get our narrator to tell us how the two of them are feeling, and then they proceed to beat the hell out of one another, and man does this not look half as epic as it should. The artwork is way too busy and hard to follow, the shifting colors make the panels hard to look at, and it's very difficult to tell what the hell is going on in this scene, especially bad considering the context of the fight. But again, to give credit where it's due, this is a hell of a page to go out on. Sonic, however, is apparently saved by a magic ring, but collapses shortly afterwards, just as someone finds him. He wakes up several hours later back in Knothole. Turns out, despite being hit by the attack, all the beam did was something stupid. It placed Knothole in some sort of temporal rift, allowing it to exist in a zone all of its own, with many other zones being created by the device after it was fired. This particular zone where Knothole is, despite being wiped off the face of the Earth before, is 3 hours into the future. Dr. Quack then takes a moment to explain everything and fill in as many plot holes as he can, stating that Robotnik found him due to being able to lock onto a component in his Dreamwatcher device, that thing Sonic used to get into the King's mind, and had Snively kidnap him and his family and replace the King with a duplicate while everyone else was out searching for the sword on Angel Island. That, plus the deal with Drago to set Sonic up, didn't account for Snively, however, who altered the weapon so that it would only destroy one organic pattern: Robotnik's. Knowing that the device wouldn't harm anyone else, the Doc kept quiet in the hopes that everything else would eventually turn out okay. He also further explains that Sally isn't actually dead, and he used her near-death experience to make everyone think she was dead and hid her in a stasis tube to keep her safe. However, she is still in a coma, and there's no telling if she'll ever come out of it. Sonic leaps out of bed and races off to see her, finding her, oh my god, out on display at the edge of the village like she's frickin' Snow White. Sonic gives her unconscious cheek a little tepid peck, telling her he loves her, and then boom, she wakes up. And it's a good thing she don't have any broken bones or shattered ribs or anything, because they immediately start making out, and I'm a bit of a sucker for a good romantic scene, but come on, time and place! We then get one last little epilogue scene, which basically just tells us how everything ended for everybody, with few surprises in it, though it does state ominously that Snively is still at large. So, that was Endgame. My god, am I glad it's over. The last issue had some good moments, but they were very few and far between. First off, the story was all over the place. Even with the added page real estate, this story struggled to wrap everything up neatly, and continued to bounce around from place to place, trying desperately to tie itself up. But it just doesn't work, especially since it was already on shaky foundations to begin with. And again, this was the director's cut. Scenes like Bunny and Antoine's escape from Down Under, which already felt pretty rushed here, and which led to their capture in the previous issue feeling like a last-minute inclusion, were non-existent in the original print of the comic. Some important characters just seem to fall right off the map here too. Jeffrey, after the whole BS about dragons sensing truth, basically just stops existing in this story despite being a major player in every issue up to this point. Same with Knuckles, who barely does anything in this issue, and isn't even mentioned or seen in the story's epilogue. What should be epic moments for the issue come off as very hard to follow, either because of how much dialogue was piled onto them, or because of the disjointed nature of the artwork. The big example of this being the showdown between Sonic and Robotnik. But then again, the entire arc was very inconsistent, with several small events either happening off-screen, or just being forgotten about entirely between issues, like how Rotor and Tails got loose, only to be recaptured a few panels later, or how Antoine and Bunny were able to plan their escape and get off the wall in Down Under. The ending is another example of something that was rushed and wasn't given any sort of room to breathe. The whole Snow White angle doesn't necessarily bother me, though the rushed nature of it makes it have absolutely no impact, and that might have been partly Sega's fault. It was still poorly managed paged real estate, but as it turns out, the ending was probably added in last minute during the development of the arc. The arc was originally supposed to be a potential ending for the comic, something that's made pretty evident by the fact that they, for real, kill off the main villain of the story. But originally, Sally was supposed to die for real. However, surprising as it sounds nowadays, Sega stepped in and requested, demanded, that she survive the arc. Apparently, they did have plans for the character down the line, though what those plans were are forever lost to the annals of history now, and it's a far cry from how Sega treats anything from the American or European canon nowadays. And as we'll see in some of the coming issues, when you have a book you think is ending and you kill off the main source of conflict in your series, the stories struggle to stay good, honestly. Well, consistently good, I should say. In the art department, oh my god, this issue is a clusterfuck. And here's why. Look at this credits list. In a rather admirable sentiment for a big milestone like the 50th issue, Ken Penders wanted to get as many past artists who worked on the book to work on this issue as possible. Like I said, admirable sentiment, but my god does it give the book a very inconsistent feel. I've spoken about this before during the few times we've had separate artists appearing on the same story, but during those situations, at the very least, those stories would wait until they were between parts for the change. Here, the artist can change in the same scene, and we're changing styles every 2 or 3 pages. It is incredibly jarring, and there's a reason why most comics keep a single artist on a single story. Consistency is pretty damn important here. But now, at last, it's over. We've closed the cover on the first huge age of the comic and finished off one of its worst storylines. So next time, we're going to give the book a bit of a break, as we go and take a look at something that was just getting up off the ground around the same time that the arc was coming out. Next time, we're going to be taking a look at the start of the Knuckles the Echidna ongoing series. See you next time, everyone.